The CNBC app. Global market news in one place. Customizable sections and personalized alerts. Stocks tracking, interactive charts and market insights all in your hands. Stay connected. Stay informed. Download the CNBC app today.
A very warm welcome to Squawk Box Europe as opposed to other Squawk Box with Karen Cho and myself, Steve Sedgwick, and these are your headlines. Asian equity markets pop as Chinese data points to robust demand in the face of US tariffs, whilst Beijing pledging more steps to revive consumption. Risk off, US futures slipping yet again after the Dow posts its worst week since 2023. The US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent downplaying concerns President Trump's economic policies are feeding into the market frenzy.
Hold for the president. US Commander-in-Chief Donald Trump says he'll talk with Vladimir Putin tomorrow as hopes for a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire rise. German Chancellor-in-waiting Friedrich Merz strikes a deal with the Greens, clearing the way for an historic defense and infrastructure spending package this week.
Es wird an keiner Stelle mehr.
There will be no lack of financial means to defend freedom and peace on our continent. Germany is back. Germany is making its major contribution to the defence of freedom and peace in Europe.
How you been?
Good morning, welcome back.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? It's been quite a few sessions. Yeah, life's been busy.
What did you think of Singapore?
I love Singapore. Yeah,
It's going places.
Yeah, I'm moving out.
You're going places.
Yeah. I've told the team I'm off. They're all pleased. Everyone's thrilled. Apart from some of the viewers. I did Squawk Box on Friday.
Those viewers.
Yeah, I did
Some
Squawk
might miss you over this way too.
Oh, man, I tell you, it was great. Martin Sung, you know Marty. You love Marty. You've worked with him for a long time. Sri Jagaraja, worked with them. So I was working, as you know, on this event Monday to Thursday.
Live.
Converge, great. Lots of big stars and me out there, and me. And then I thought, I've got a loose end on Friday. They didn't realise I was around, so I thought I'd do Squawk Box Asia. Oh yeah, so I actually thought I'd do later program, but they told me that
you could have done some tourist stuff, gone and checked out
Moorish.
top of the Marina Bay Sands.
Yeah. Didn't know.
Gardens.
I did Squawk Boxes. They've got up at 4 a.m. on my day off. Anyway, so the viewers, there was some good comments. It was like, they were loving me.
Why is he shouting at the screen? Was it one of those?
No. There was Shri put out a post, and here's one from Sunshil, one of my favourite friends now in Asia. In my opinion, Steve Sedgwick is just a zzz. I think there's lots of Zs. I think that means a bore. Always trying to look hard to look smart. That's why Europe's Squawk Box is the most boring. Love Shri and Martin and JP in Asia, though. And I have fan mail.
Oh, you did. They absolutely adored you on that side of the world. They were adoring it. Well, we're happy to have you back.
I messaged back to the guy. I said, I'm always trying to look smart. I'll keep endearing.
But I think we can say lots of things about you, but boring is not one of them.
No.
That is just
I'm going to change.
Just not one.
I'm going to change. I'm going to look at the tapes. All 25 years
Must have been having a bad day.
Bless him. Good. Sunshil, you're a great friend, I'm sure. US President Donald Trump says he will impose reciprocal duties on trading partners starting... Haven't we had this a few times? I've lost track. Wasn't he going to do this anyway? Anyway, reciprocal duties on trading partners starting April 2nd. Speaking to reporters a few hours ago, Mr. Trump said the tariffs will come alongside existing auto duties. He also added that he had no intention of announcing exemptions on steel and aluminium tariffs. Okay, the Dow rallied more than 650 points on Friday in a short-term reprieve. It might be short-term, who knows, from tariff-related headlines. The index still posted its worst week since 2023 as investors continue to worry about the future of the US economy. The Treasury Secretary, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, said there was no guarantee there will not be a recession in the United States. Speaking to NBC's Meet the Press, Mr. Bessent said he was focused on preventing a financial crisis.
I've been in the investment business for 35 years, and I can tell you that corrections are healthy, they're normal. What's not healthy is straight up. that you get these euphoric markets. That's how you get a financial crisis. It would have been much healthier if someone had put the brakes on in 06, 07. We wouldn't have had the problems in 08. So I'm not worried about the markets. Over the long term, if we put good tax policy in place, deregulation, and energy security, the markets will do great.
Yeah, energy security. You've got to take on those big foreign foes, haven't you? Like Canada. Let's take a look at the Asian markets. Canadians got a lot of energy and a lot of those critical resources that you need, including uranium, including cobalt, including lithium. Did I mention oil? No, okay. Right, let's have a look at the Asian indices. Up across the board. Hang Seng's 1% higher, 1.5% higher for the Kospi. This is interesting. Chinese retail sales, industrial production and urban investment all picked up during the first 2 months of the year. A pretty welcome sign of relatively robust economic activity in the face of newly imposed US tariffs. This, for me, is absolutely key. The retail sales rose 4%, buoyed by holiday spending over the Lunar New Year. If the Chinese consumers spending, that is a large part of solving some of these problems that China faces. Anyway, industrial production was up 5.9%. That is down, though, from the previous print, but ahead of forecast. Fixed asset investment rose 4.1%. That is well ahead of expectations and up on the December figure.
A lot of spending at the box office, I gather, a big cinema release.
Oh, really?
That was drawing them in. Nisha 2.
Go on, tell me about it. What's it about?
Well, I haven't seen it, but a lot of the Chinese have apparently.
Wow.
It was really.
I'm going to Google it.
Yeah, there's a lot
other
about
search engines.
domestic storytelling that's really exciting. The Chinese moviegoer. Well, China's State Council unveiled what it called a special action plan to boost domestic consumption. It seeks to increase demand, to lift incomes, and will also introduce a childcare subsidy scheme. Officials have faced increased calls for consumer-targeted stimulus measures as the country staves off deflationary pressures and the threat of Trump tariffs. A look at how the MSCI China versus the S&P 500 indices have fared, and this has been the performance. It really has been about the China stock names. The market, don't forget, also playing the AI themes domestically, thanks to first up DeepSeek and then Alibaba. So well and truly left behind the S&P 500 and those large cap stocks. So stunning divergence, 22% up versus 4% down since the start of the year. Let's push on to Fred Newman, who joins us, Chief Asia Economist, HSBC. Fred, thank you so much for joining us. To me, as we rake through the data, there seems to be a lot of distortions too in the numbers, as we've got an economy that was trying to front load some of the tariffs out of the United States. So just pick through those numbers and what the relevance was for you.
Well, a tad better, not exactly surging demand, but remember, we've been talking for months now. We wanted to see the consumer finally wake up, and there's a sense here that he's at least starting to stop yawning and maybe look a little bit more confident into the future, because just as the trade war really gets going, exports have slowed in China first couple of months of the year. So we need consumption to wake up. And today we got the first signs of really a marginal uptick. And of course, over the weekend, further messages by the government that they want to focus really on consumer spending. And this, by the way, comes in the context of the US consumer looking a bit tired. So we really need China's consumption to pick up in the coming months for a healthy global economy, not just for China's sake.
Fred, to what extent is AI supporting the domestic economy now? Because the AI story that's been told through DeepSeek and Alibaba has certainly stimulated a lot of stock market action. And we know the Chinese like speculation. They like a market that is going up. And we obviously have not seen that for a long time on the property market or the stock market. So what is the flow and effect from this wealth effect on the stock market?
Well, certainly confidence boost, but it's helpful on the stock market. Of course, we saw technology stocks rise, a certain sense that maybe there's going to be a bit of a wealth effect come through. But remember, you have to compare this against the property market, which continues to struggle. And we saw even the first couple of months of this year, the property market still struggling a little bit to make headway. So you have a big drag on the property side. So any rise on the equity side is welcome, but we're not yet anywhere close to that offsetting really the drag from real estate. But, and I think this is the message today that we probably get at the press conference from the MOF and the PBOC, which is that this focus that we need to see continued improvement in asset prices. And with that, they mean the equity market. So we might see more helpful policies coming through on equities just to help that wealth effect just gain more traction.
Yeah, I think it's happening, Fred. Really nice to see you, by the way. And I saw you on the BBC the other day. You're looking magnificent, sir. But I've had an idea. I don't know if anyone else is thinking this, but if the Chinese can find growth from the consumer, which of course is the key to unlocking so much for the Chinese, and they're getting better data on the Chinese consumer at the moment as well. Does that potentially make them able to be more robust facing down the threat from the US as well? So I'm tying two stories together here as well, because if they're less worried about their export story with the US, and actually the Chinese consumer, this behemoth, is beginning to spend money again as well, does that leave them in a more robust position? And again, you were referencing the fact that the US consumer is teetering somewhat, not unnoted by this show as well. So if the US consumer is struggling, the Chinese consumer not surging, but looking more robust as well, does that mean on an economic, transactional, tariff-facing point of view, the Chinese can be more robust?
That's exactly, I think, the hope in Beijing, that it would give Beijing much more leverage in negotiations with the US, because if the domestic economy is strong, Chinese exporters won't necessarily need the US market necessarily. So any strength domestically helps really also in that trade tiff with the United States. And there's something else, by the way, and that is that the more the US imposes tariffs, of course, prices go up for US consumers. And so from a Chinese perspective, as long as they can offset the growth impact, the US is left with inflation impact. And it's not clear necessarily to them who has more leverage in this negotiation. It seems the US at first blush, but if the Chinese economy can actually shake off the growth impact, then maybe the leverage is more evenly distributed in these negotiations.
Yeah, and Fred, let me move on, because that's a great point. Here's something else. There is a story doing the rounds at tail end of last week that China is holding this big meeting between President Xi and big global chief executives. Ken Griffin's been mentioned, the new CEO of HSBC, Patrick Pouyanné, whatever. He's courting the key men and women globally to invest in China at the same time when those same ladies and gentlemen are really concerned about policy oscillation in the United States. It seems to me a bit of a masterstroke, but more importantly, what do you think?
Well, there's a strategic opportunity here for the Chinese to say to the partners across the world, we're still open for business. We like to work with you. We're not imposing tariffs. We really believe in the free trade system. We want to rescue the WTO. We're reliable. So there is a strategic opportunity. And I think this upcoming meeting with global chief executives perhaps meant to show sort of that China is reaching out, still open for business. But of course, the proof is in the pudding. And that is, can China really deliver open its own economy further to foreign businesses? There's still a lot of ways to go, but strategic opportunity for China to sort of take leadership of the global economy is starting to emerge.
Fred, there's been some concern that the stimulus measures already announced to date might start to fade in terms of encouraging consumption. So let me ask you about children, because we've seen a lot of announcements in recent months about different provinces across China encouraging populations to have more children, given there's been decline in the population rate, but it also is a way to spur on consumption. What are you hearing on that side that may move the needle on consumption for China?
Well, there's still possibly more coming. Just over the weekend, we had suggestions that maybe childcare subsidies are coming, for example. That's not yet happening in China. That would help young parents, or encourage young parents to have more children. Really, there's a dual aim here. One is to address the low fertility rates and help the demographic drag, and at the same time boosting consumption as well, particularly younger people. Younger people have been perhaps a bit more hesitant in spending recently. They're looking at the cost of education of the children. They're looking at high costs of housing. They're looking at uncertain job market. So anything to get younger people to spend again would, of course, have a multiplier effect on the economy. And that's, I think, what they're aiming at. And that's where you see so much emphasis on that. One new thing, though, that really came out of the weekend is focus on income. It's not just about subsidies. It's not just about spending. There's also Chinese are now saying we need to raise income as well. Minimum wages, rural wages, urban wages, income have to go up. And the big question, though, is who's going to pay for it? Well, hopefully this afternoon we'll get more answers on that from China's government.
Yeah, really looking forward to that policy announcement. We understand starts coming out in around about 45 minutes' time. Fred, lovely to see you as ever. Thank you for your time, sir. Fred Neumann, Chief Asia Economist at HSBC. Well, as we just referred to there, China's Xi Jinping will reportedly meet a number of global CEOs in Beijing next month, including Qualcomm's Cristiano Amon, Saudi Aramco's Amin Nasser, and those other names I mentioned when we were chatting with Fred. Xi's move to court international business leaders comes as China looks to show that it's open for business, as we discussed, in contrast to concerns surrounding the Trump administration's protectionist America First stance.
Coming up on the show, Germany's Chancellor-in-waiting Friedrich Merz clears a parliamentary hurdle in his bid to push his historic spending package through. We'll have the latest next. Plus, the US Vice President J.D. Vance sets an April 5 deadline for a TikTok deal. We'll bring you more on that later this hour. And don't miss our conversation with the CEO of Eutelsat as speculation mounts that the company could replace Elon Musk's Starlink in Ukraine. That is coming up at 7:30 GMT. US President Donald Trump plans to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday after a lot of work over the weekend. Trump says he has a, quote, very good chance of bringing the war to an end as he tries to get Russia to accept the 30-day ceasefire agreement which Ukraine agreed to last week. Trump said potential concessions have already been discussed with both Ukraine and Russia.
We'll, be talking about land. It's a lot of land. It's a lot different than it was before the wars, And we'll be talking about land. We'll be talking about power plants, because that's up, that's a big question. But I think we have a lot of it already discussed very much by both sides.
You'll ask it?
Ukraine and Russia.
You'll ask it?
We're already talking about that. Dividing up certain assets.
When he talks about dividing up certain assets, the people all over Europe just start shuddering, aren't they? Soon-to-be German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has secured the support of the Greens for a huge increase in state borrowing, which is set to fund defence spending and boost growth in the country. I haven't spoken to Annetta for ages. Annetta, fill me in with all the details. The Greens have come round.
Yes, the Greens have come around, but it did have a price tag. So essentially what will be discussed, whether the term climate neutrality will actually make it into the Grundgesetz, which is the Magna Carta, or however you wanted to call it, the Constitution of Germany. And that's very crucial. And this is now highly debated, whether this climate neutrality phase will actually prevent other investments than in climate neutrality. Having said that, it's a bold move from the Greens to actually go with the SPD and the CDU together in order to make the way free for the reform of the potential debt brake. So what we're going to see is a vote in the Bundestag. And here, the majority is thin, I have to say, only 31 members of the respective parties cannot vote in favor of it to actually pass the bill. And then we have a very crucial vote in the Bundesrat, which is the upper house on Friday. And here also still 6 votes to the two-third majority actually missing. And that could actually come from Bavaria. And Bavaria is not yet in the camp because there's a coalition between the CSU and the Free Voters, which is not easy to actually bring them in the boat. So it's not a given that we're going to get that gigantic fiscal package. Friedrich Merz at the same time is quite adamant about the fact that this is crucial at this moment in time, not about infrastructure, but about defense. Take a listen.
Es wird an keiner Stelle mehr.
There will be no lack of financial means to defend freedom and peace on our continent. This is particularly important to me because we're also facing a whole series of important decisions in Europe, including in NATO, in the coming weeks. Germany is back. Germany is making its major contribution to defence of freedom and peace in Europe.
So the message is clear. Germany is back with a fiscal package, actually, which is as more or less the same size of the one which we had when the two parts of Germany came together, when we had the reunification. So just to give you an idea of how massive that fiscal package is actually going to be.
Superb. Thank you very much indeed. You have done a great job of setting us up for our next interview with Omid Nuripur, who is a member of the Bundestag Alliance 90 The Greens. Omid, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Look, I'm here to be educated. Tell me, why do you think so? What was the main reason that the Greens had their opposition and are now actually in favour of this extraordinary use of the old Bundestag?
One is bold challenges need bold moves, and this is a bold move to help my country to be more capable to defend itself and defend its allies, and also to modernize our infrastructure, which has not been modernized for decades. And the second one is most parts of that package are just blueprint of our party program. You just referred to the climate protection part of it. Yeah, we want to spend more on that, and we are getting it. So there is no reason to just be grumpy because part of a coalition we vote for that package because it's good for the country and good for Europe.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from all over Germany. So now is the time to put aside some of our preferences and go for what is the greater good as well. There is a problem for the Greens, though, and I just want to know what you think about this. The fact that you will not be involved in how the Climate and Transformation Fund is spent. It's great that there is a special fund, but you won't be able to kind of tell the CDU, CSU and the SPD how to spend this. That's a bit of a problem for the Greens, isn't it?
Sure, it is. This is why we had these tough negotiations to bring in mechanisms of detailed mechanisms of how to spend the money, and this is why it's important that climate neutrality or decarbonization, I would call it in English, would be part of the constitution of my country. This is why we are trying to put the money for the climate protection for this 100 billion euros we're talking about into another bin of spending. So this is why we had these talks all the time. Of course, in the end, we will not decide about any single dime which is going to be spent, but no dime means no spending, and no spending is a lack of modernization of the country, lack of defense capabilities, and a lack of climate protection.
I mean, while there is certainly a lot of applause for the efforts to get Germany going again, let me ask you, though, how democratic the process is, because the timing here, there is a fast-track process before the new parliament starts, and we know there's opposition from the AfD and from the far left as well, seemingly trying to avert that opposition that's going to be put forward. So how democratic is the process?
Formally, it's absolutely democratic because the German Bundestag has to be able to decide anything until the new period of the next parliament going to start. But of course, it's some kind of a bizarre moment when a bunch of MPs gonna vote tomorrow who gonna leave the parliament a week after that. But we have to understand that first we had all of these measures of the package, all of the part of the package at the table, and the Conservatives were not able to come around and talk about it while they've been part of the opposition. And the second part is you just mentioned the two parties in the next German Bundestag, the Left Party and the AfD. These two parties are not able or not willing to support Ukraine, and this is why we have to bring all the things necessary up now in these moments to be capable to react to all of the, let me call it, madness coming from the Oval Office.
I want to ask you about the optics of the changes, because internationally it looks like Germany has put itself back on the map, these big plans around infrastructure and defence. But domestically it feels as though politicians still have a tough job selling the changes, that the electorate's not going to see the changes for many, many years. And if anything, the mood is still somewhat dour domestically. Can you just walk us through that?
I fully agree with you on that, but this is nothing unique in Germany. You can see it in the UK, you can see it in the United States, in Canada, and anywhere, and all of the places. We are in a moment of defending truth also, and when I watch what's going on in the social media, it's getting more and more tough to defend reason and reasonable arguments. Beside of that, it's obvious that our people have to understand and then see that the state is a functional asset, is a functional unit. And this is what is not being the case in Germany when it came to digitalization, when it came to the railways and a lot of other goods of public life. And this is what we have to change immediately. This is why the infrastructure part of the package is so important.
Omid, just from an economic net zero transition perspective as well, I noticed that the ruble, best performing currency this year versus the dollar, surging. I've noticed that hedge funds are looking for new bets, see how they can possibly get back into Russia. I've noticed that certain German businessmen and women are thinking about how they can turn back on Nord Stream 2 as well. Are you worried that if we get the end of this war, and we all pray that we will get the end of the war sooner rather than later, that Germany is just going to turn back to Russia in so many of those old alliances in a Merkel-type way of trying to tie in Russia economically that just didn't work previously?
Of course, we have to be concerned because there is some kind of a, I don't know if I can call it a collusion between the Oval Office and Kremlin, but this is the biggest concern, not Germany. In Germany, we have a tough stand and a clear stand when it comes to defending Ukraine. Part of the package we were just talking about is that we gonna go on helping and supporting and delivering financial aid also for Ukraine and military aid also, and Germany gonna stand on this. If the Americans just try to normalize their relationship to with Russia, going to be much more complicated to stand, and this is not a task for Germany, it's a task for anyone in Europe. The biggest concerns are not about us. The biggest concerns are about the people of Ukraine and how they are suffering and then they are losing ground in these days.
I mean, I want to ask you about the tariffs, because last week concerns around economic growth, at least in the short term, as Europe braces for tariffs with the United States. What impact do you think Germany could feel still, at least from the Trump administration?
It's obvious that the answer to all of the tariffs has to be a European one, and I'm very happy that the European Union is united in that. And we're gonna, of course, be in close cooperation with UK, with Canada, Mexico, and other allies of ours. And at the end, we have to retaliate what the Oval Office is bringing up as tariffs. And hopefully, at the end of the day, they're going to see that this is a zero-sum game and nobody can win tariffs versus tariffs. So it's tough for anybody, but the first wave of everything getting more expensive, you're seeing now in the United States. And this is what we hope gonna bring in the turnover to rationality in the U.S. trade policy.
Omid, really, really nice to make your acquaintance today. Thank you so much indeed for joining Karen and myself. Omid Nuripur, who is member of the Bundestag Alliance 90 The Greens. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to Squawk Box Europe Express.
For more market-moving news, you can head to cnbc.com.
Or join us again on the show with Steve Sedgwick, Karen Cho, and myself, Arabile Kumete, weekdays on CNBC.